Rookies from the 2026 NFL draft class shined brightly in week 1 of the NFL preseason, and Drew Allar proved the Pittsburgh Steelers was right to draft him and that he was better than his third-round selection.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I'm Damian Parson. That's Keith Sanchez. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Today's show is all about week 1 of preseason and the rookies from the 2026 NFL draft and giving you our true reactions, talking about the quarterbacks. Jeremiyah Love, did he look like the special running back we wanted to see for the Arizona Cardinals? And a much maligned wide receiver pick kind of looked like it's going to work out in San Fran. But let's start off with the quarterbacks, Keith. And again, we had, 3? Because Carson Beck ended up having a rib injury, so he didn't play in week 1 of the preseason. He played in the Hall of Fame game.
Mm-hmm.
But let's kick it off with, I would say go to Mendoza, but let's go to Drew Allar. Drew Allar, quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was a 3rd-round pick. Mike McCarthy and the new coaching staff selected him as their guy. Will Howard was a Mike Tomlin drafted guy. Drew Allar was the guy that they selected, and Drew Allar looked good, Keith. He looked good. And then, again, it's just a preseason, so we don't put too much into anything. But he looked good. I think the whole talk about them stripping him down to the studs and working on mechanics and everything, he was 10 of 13, 153 yards. I think 2 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown, Keith. Talk about it. What did you take away from Drew Allar's NFL debut?
Yeah, I thought that he looked confident, DP. And we know that there's 2 versions of Drew Allar, right? There's the version of Drew Allar, I think, against, was it West Virginia, and maybe back-to-back years where he's cooked them for 350 yards and 3-4 touchdowns and looked like the number 1 overall pick. And then there's the Drew Allar when they're playing big-time games and you're like, I may not take this guy until day 3, right? 2 different versions of him. And I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, to me, the one thing that they worked on was if you see it, trust it and rip it. Because there were throws that I thought that he took shots and chances on that even someone will potentially contested that I didn't really see him take at Penn State. I think one of them, and it might have been an incompletion, but it was kind of like a back shoulder throw down the field towards the sideline. The receiver, I think he got hands on it. He just didn't come down with it. And I was like, okay, that's an advanced, not so much just advanced level throw, but advanced thought level to be able to attempt that pass and put it in a good spot. So I was impressed with that. I thought that they got him out of the pocket a couple times. And we discussed that leading into the weekend, DP. How do we, what are we looking for in context of Drew Allar and his footwork and his mechanics and, what type of athlete will he look like on the NFL level when these players have elevated speed and things like that? Because we said that there were times he looked heavy-footed. This game, he looked like a big-bodied quarterback that can move a little, right? And you'll take that, right? You'll take that all day. So one of his touchdowns, was a rushing touchdown, and then I think he had one. Well, it was the bootlegs and those type of plays where it was moving a launch point to where you said, okay, this is not bad at all. So I think it was like coming away from it and grading it. I'll give it a solid B. Because I thought that you should have some optimism there, and obviously a large chunk of the yardage came from the one big play. I can't remember the receiver's name. I thought it was like
Caden Weechin from Iowa.
Yeah. I thought it was Ben Skoranek at first, DP. And I was like, wait, that's not him.
Too small.
Yeah. So I thought you should be, if you're a Steelers fan, you should be optimistic about it.
Absolutely. I give it a B+, Keith. What I really appreciated was the process in the quick game. Just reading it, seeing it quickly, making decisive decisions. There was a play, like one of my biggest knocks on him coming out was I felt like he didn't make the right decision under pressure. And it was one play where he threw, I think it was either a slant or in breaker in the middle of the field. They dialed up a lot of like in breaking middle of the field routes that he was just beaming right there between the numbers, just accurate ball placement, timing, rhythm throws. But this one particular play, the defense got I think they sent it, might have been a delayed blitz with one of the backers, and they got a free runner in his face. And you see him, then it just showed off the arm talent and then the arm slots ability. He's dropped his arm angle, and he just shot it right past that free runner, and it was right on the numbers. And I'm like, no, to your point, this is the most confident version of Drew Allar I've seen in quite some time. Like, he was super confident in this game, and I think it goes back to coaching. There's no shot at James Franklin, but it's just like it just didn't feel like when you watched him, it felt like, again, it's just one preseason game, some vanilla defenses, vanilla offenses, stuff like that. But I felt like when I was watching Drew Allar, I saw a player that when you go back to college, I feel like he was trying not to make the big mistakes. And I feel like Mike McCarthy, and like you said, just having coaches empower you is a big thing. So it's like, I would be shocked if Mike McCarthy told him, hey, go out there and play your game, run the offense. I know what you can do. You know what you can do, and let's make it happen. And he went out there and did exactly what he needed to do. So there's true drop back sets. There was some of the bootleg stuff. Like you said, and it's crazy because you called, he was like, I wonder if they would give him a little QB zone read and get him out in the and then that rushing touchdown was exactly like inside the 5. And because nobody's going to think he's going to pull that, right? Like, you think he's going to hand it off to whoever the running back is, and that be that. No, he played the mesh point well, read the backside in, he crashed, he took it, touchdown. And it's just like, he looks confident, he looks secure, he did everything. I think if you're a Steelers fan, everything he did in that game, you were hoping to see from him.
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, just from working all three levels. But to me, DP, the most important part was the part that you hit on, and that was the quick game. And that tied into what I was saying, my initial point with just being decisive. I thought that I can't remember if it was a 3rd and something, and he still just took the check down, which was okay in the situation, because I'm like, if it's not open, like, he still looked like he went through his progressions and he went through his process. And I'm like, you can work with this, right? Like, and especially you're talking about young quarterbacks getting acclimated to the game. Sometimes the win is not hurting the team, right? Like, hey, if we punt the football and then we're pinning them deep in their territory and they're now on a 5-yard, their own 5-yard line, like, we feel really good about this, right? Like, there's a high chance that we get the football back, potentially in a good situation. So I thought he looked calm, and I have to be honest with you, DP, I was somewhat surprised. Just because the Pittsburgh Steelers of old, right? When it talks about having all of these offensive weapons, and we always talk about it, right? When they had the Emmanuel Sanders and the Mike Wallaces, and it wasn't that he was necessarily throwing to a bunch of dudes, right? And he came out there, and this is the part where I think you still have to tip your cap to preseason football, in the sense of the fact of, it's like, oh man, that's the 2nd and 3rd stringers. Well, I mean, I'm playing with the 2nd and 3rd stringers too, right? So it's kind of even. And then this is how you start to separate yourself, right? Like, on this level of the 2nd stringers, who stands out? And then that's
not like he's throwing a DK Metcalf against the 3rd stringers. You know what I mean? He's throwing against another day 3. He's throwing to a day 3 receiver in Caden Wheatgen, who, I mean, Keith, I've been talking about Iowa for years. They just need a quarterback, because Caden Wheatgen was a guy I liked a lot coming out as a slot. He was one of the best for kick return and punt returners in the nation for Iowa. And I'm like, guys, if you actually utilize him in the passing game, your offense will look a lot better and not be so run heavy. Iowa still just can't get out of their own way. I keep trying to give them help, Keith. They'll get out their own way. But we're going to take this. We're going to start the conversation, but take it into the next segment. Let's talk about Fernando, Keith. Fernando Mendoza, talking about the guy who looked calm, 10 of 16, 97 yards in the touchdown, Keith. What did you see just out the gate from Fernando in his first NFL action?
Yeah, I'm going to say this, and then we're going to go ahead and transition. I think it warranted a number 1 overall pick with Fernando Mendoza. I thought that he looked confident, and there were certain elements of the game that I was actually surprised that the Las Vegas Raiders put him into. And we're going to discuss those elements, DP, because it's something you always discuss with Fernando Mendoza about something he didn't do in college all too much that I've seen in a preseason game. And we're going to discuss that coming up next.
There are more live events than ever we're seeing right now. Games, concerts, comedy shows, festivals. The hard part usually isn't deciding where I want to go. It's actually getting tickets to the show. Between long wait times, confusing checkout processes, and surprise fees, buying tickets can sometimes feel harder than it should. That's why so many fans are turning to Game Time. The app is built to make buying tickets simple with upfront pricing, seat views before you buy, and exclusive saving opportunities to help you get to the events that you want without the usual hassle. My biggest pet peeve is when I think I found that great deal, that steal of a deal, get all the way to checkout, and suddenly the final price looks totally different. So it's simple. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to every type of event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right, Keith, let's continue the conversation. Fernando Mendoza, you said what he did and his first NFL action was warranted of being the first overall pick.
Yeah, I thought that he showed versatility. And what I mean by that is going through his scouting report, DP, one thing you always hit on, you said, you know what, I'm interested to see how this turns out. And that was him getting under center, right? Mm-hmm. You talked about how much RPO, you talked about how much they, shotgun. Did stuff out of shotgun. And I seen him get under center. And this was a traditional pro style it wasn't an I formation. I can't remember exactly.
Single back, I think it was.
Nah, it was two. It was two. I believe they had a fullback on them. Yeah, they had two backs on the field.
Okay, I know. Yeah.
They had two backs on the field, but he got under center, play action, right? Play action, good play action fake, stepped up in the pocket and then drilled it, right? And you know, we talk about passing concepts and they talk about in zone and that the triangle, right? Reading a triangle, and he put it right in the triangle, right? I think it was between two linebackers and then the safety was over top. The receiver, kind of bend it right behind the linebacker, sat down in that hole, and he delivered the football. And I was impressed with that. I think he was another guy that had a back shoulder attempt in the game, if I'm not mistaken. And then also he had somewhat of a speed out to Jack Besh early on to where he, was able to place the football. So I think, and we have other quarterbacks that we have to continue to discuss. Maybe he didn't have the best performance, right? But I think you feel good about this performance. He didn't appear to be nervous or hesitant. The Las Vegas Raiders put him in situations that he wasn't all too comfortable with in college, but you love the growth part of it, right? They're like, hey, he feels confident enough in his first start to get under center, have the footwork to execute, and then deliver accurate pass. And DP, when he ripped it, there was some velocity, there was some juice on that football, which I really appreciated. And I was like, okay, like that's an NFL arm also to add along with that.
No, 100%, Keith. I think listen, I think whenever he gets on the field, there seems to be a natural connection with him and Jack Besh. Because his touchdown was to Jack Besh as well on the kind of like a inside, like he was kind of I think it was like maybe a 3x1, so a trip set, either trips or doves, and he was the inside receiver. He ran a quick slant, and I'm gonna say I don't care. It was very reminiscent.
DP.
It was very reminiscent of watching like Brady and Edelman, like that synergy. Whereas like those quick game, and then even the ball placement. How many times we see Tom Brady throw a ball to Edelman, Amendola, Welker amongst the trees, amongst defenders, and he threw it low so they can go down, make the grab, first down or touchdown. And I love that ball placement. And to your point, because I remember tweeting out that the play that you're talking about from Fernando. It was like I think it was like it might have been like 12 offset eye play action.
That's exactly what it was.
Play action. I love the play fake, the way he sold them. Like for a guy who was in shotgun pretty much his entire career, his whole year last year at Indiana, he handled this play action fake to a T. Because if you for those who haven't seen it, you can go look at my Twitter page, DP_NFL on Twitter, or X as they call it now. On there, like you see when he flashes the ball into the stomach of the running back before he pulls it out, you can see it holds the linebackers, and he read the triangle perfectly. Because I had a dialogue, so it was like, against the Stars, this is an interception. I was like, not necessarily. No, it's not, because that linebacker still has his keys to read. So when he takes that false step forward, now his eyes paying out to see, okay, is that Z receiver going to run an in breaker? Is he working into my zone? He still got keys that he has to read. He can't just flip his head and look at the receiver behind him. He's got it because there's a safety there. So there was 3 defenders, and he drilled it. And I was like, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to see from you. Because in those situations, they're going to lean on Ashton Genty. They're going to lean on the guy that we're going to talk about. If we don't get to him today, we're going to talk about him tomorrow. Mike Washington Jr. and how he looked. So they might have a legit 1-2 punch at running back in Las Vegas. And I'll say this, Keith, when it turns to Mendoza, this is why you have veteran quarterbacks on the roster. Mendoza made a comment about how Kirk Cousins operates and how just from him as a rookie, watch it. The guy played in the shotgun for Kurt Signetti in Indiana the entire season in 2025. Mm-hmm. So to see Kirk Cousins come in, work under center, work on his footwork, turn his back to the defense, then be able to turn around after the play action fake and identify what they're in. That's what you want for a quarterback. No matter, and Mendoza, I think he played play close to 30, if not over 30 games as a prospect in college. Mm-hmm. So he passed that because he started. I think he started both years, Cal and at Indiana, and I think he played. And he also started games the year before. He got on everybody's radar and everything like that. I think he had I think he played against Caleb Williams, if I remember correctly. So he's played a lot of games, but even still, you need a vet to help you get acclimated to the league and how to run that Clint Kubiak offense. I love what I saw from him just overall, Keith.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go back to something you were discussing, and that's the part why I think what preseason is unfair, right? When people are like, oh man, if that was against the starters, that would have been an interception. Well, maybe if that was the starters too, he wouldn't have threw it. Meaning that if we believe that linebacker would have made a high-level play or been in position, right, he may have seen the linebacker and just not even threw the football at all, right? So it's very difficult to be critical, and that's why I always say it's process, right? So I didn't talk about oh man, that was a 20-yard completion. I talked about being under center, the footwork, the process of, like you said, sticking the football in the running back's belly, showing a good play action fake, and then reading the defense and then coming up and throwing the football. I'm gonna go with that, DP, and then I think with Fernando Mendoza, we talked about this, right? Once it happened, and I think a lot of people were confused with the Kirk Cousins Fernando Mendoza thing, but they speak the same language. DP.
They do.
And listen, we American, we all speak English, but Kirk Cousins and Fernando Mendoza, they speak the exact same language, right? They're similar. Like you can tell, like they it's almost like a big brother, little brother thing. Like it's an interesting.
And then you got dad in the front office in terms of Tom Brady. You got dad in front office, so it's like, you don't have nothing to worry about if you're Mendoza.
Yeah. You can tell they probably have very similar personalities, right? Like the things that they laugh about in the quarterback room, they both laugh about, right? Like it's and that helps a lot when you bring on a young quarterback. So I'll definitely say the future is bright in Las Vegas. DP, real quick, let's go ahead and talk about it. You brought up Mike Washington. Let's have the conversation. The explosiveness. Everybody's gonna hit on the run. I'm gonna go back to the process, DP. I love the fact that it was in between the tackles. I love the fact that he had lateral cuts in the box, right? Like I think he made the linebacker miss, and then when he got to the second level, it was another lateral cut. I love the fact that it was a stiff arm. I love the fact that you've seen the high knees coming out of there, and then that Adrian Peterson-esque gallop on down the football field when we seen that 4.3 speed. So I'm excited. I'm putting even more stock into it, into the Mike Washington Jr. situation.
Yeah, I think, we talk about, the situation with Las Vegas and, hey, can you lock in a top 5 pick and get Jeremiyah Smith? That's the idea. Either you want to walk out of that top 10, top 5, top 7, a top 5 to top 7 pick with either Cam Colvin or Jeremiyah Smith. You want to go get yourself that dominant, true number 1 wide receiver. But I expect this team to lean heavily on the run game. And especially if there's reports about them using Ashton Genty a little more in the passing offense, which I feel like they didn't do enough of last year. They did down the stretch when you saw him start to really get going. It was like, get him in the flats, get him in the screen game. He can run some routes out of the backfield, utilize his full skill set and everything. But now with Mike Washington, I think you can come out with both of those guys on the field. Like we talk about different, it's not the same because they're both hard like downhill, hard charging running backs and well built at that. It's not the Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery situation. Because then you got Thunder and Lightning, right? You got Thunder and Thunder in Las Vegas. Two big, strong, powerful backs. One has the type of on documented 4.3 speed. The other one, you probably no less than 4.5. You know what I mean, in terms of Ashton Genty. And we saw that against, I think it was Houston last year. He had over 100 yards rushing, and things like that. He broke a big run on them and everything. So you got a two-headed monster. Where if you really want to run the football and dominate time of possession. By the time you get to the back end of the season, Mahomes is going to be 100% healthy. So you got to deal with that situation. And you want to keep him off the field. You want to keep Bo Nix off the field. You want to keep Justin Herbert off the field. How do you do that? I watched the Carolina Panthers, Keith, last year. They won 8 games? And I believe 7 of the 8, they won it with one possession game. They were very good with time of possession, running the football, punching you in the mouth. 3rd and 10, they ran the ball. Now it's 4th and 1 because you wasn't expecting to run, right? And they just played to that skill set, and it kept the opposing offenses off the field. It's the same. I can absolutely imagine that same thing. Not saying that Mike Washington's going to have 1,000 yards, but I can absolutely see Ashton Genty having 1,400 yards from scrimmage, 1,100 yards rushing, and then Mike Washington having 500-600 yards rushing. I can see them being a dominant rushing team. You brought in Tyler Linderbaum. You got JP. I think JPJ, the center. I think he's playing guard now. And everything like that. So yeah, their offensive line should be well enough to run the football. So I look forward to seeing that. And Keith, speaking of that, I gotta talk about the number 3 overall pick, Jeremiyah Love. We gotta talk about him next because yeah.
All right, well, DP, let's go ahead and do it. Let's not waste any time, DP. Let's get straight to it. So coming up next, man, we're gonna talk about the number 3 overall pick, Mr. Jeremiyah Love for the Arizona Cardinals in his debut against the Las Vegas Raiders? Las Vegas Raiders. Let's stay with it. Let's stay on the West Coast. Let's discuss that coming up next.
Support for today's episode comes from Square. Behind so many of the local businesses people visit every day is Square, a platform designed to help businesses sell, manage, and grow. Whether it's a neighborhood coffee shop, a packed sports bar on game day, or your favorite restaurant, Square brings payments, banking, and more together in one connected system. It helps business owners spend less time managing technology and more time focusing on their customers. Square isn't just a payment processor. It's a complete business platform built to simplify the day-to-day. It's the little things for me, like when a restaurant is slammed, but the staff never looks stressed out, or when checkout is fast, and no matter how busy it gets, you're not waiting around, nothing feels chaotic, and it just feels organized. If you're starting a business or already running one that needs better tools, Square helps you sell, manage, and grow without slowing down. Right now, you can get up to $200 off Square hardware at square.com/go/LockedOnNFL. That's SQUARE.com/GO/LockedOnNFL. Run your business smarter with Square. Get started today. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen of the day, and thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the number 1 sports podcast network in America. It's all because of you, our everydayers. Jeremiyah Love, the 3rd overall pick to the Arizona Cardinals in the 2026 NFL Draft. Keith, you made a statement, I believe it was on Friday. Was it Friday? Either Thursday. No, it was Thursday. And you said, what you wanted to see was whether or not he was, if they gave him the touches, which he believed he had 14 total touches, 11. He had 11 carries, 3 receptions, so 14 touches, 73 total yards from scrimmage. You said you wanted to see if Jeremiyah Love had that special movement, athleticism. You want to see him be a special player, even in preseason. If they gave him the touches, Keith, how are you feeling after seeing him in week 1 of the preseason?
I'm feeling really good about it, DP. And I told you, right, and I don't think he had a big run, right? I think his longest run was, I think, 15 or 17 yards, somewhere in there. But I told you, it wasn't about that. It was the quickness, the stop ability, the ability to feel his presence when he has the football in his hands, and you saw that. And if he didn't break a big run, DP, you felt like there's just a matter of time before it comes, right? Like, could this be a situation where I get better as the game goes on, And then right around the beginning of the fourth quarter is when I break that 50-yard run and kind of, seal a deal for my team and my offense. So I was excited for him. I was excited. I'm excited about it. And I think we consistently had the conversations of putting him in the class with the Jahmyr Gibbs of the world and some of the, Bijan Robinson-esque conversations. I think he did a good job of making the case for why those conversations should have been warranted, right? Just having those conversations overall, because we talked about it. I think that was the Thursday podcast too. We talked about got drafted before all those guys. So in context, what does that mean, right? We could go to draft classes and things like that, but still being a running back, getting drafted that high, I think he had some pressure on him, but I think he delivered and showed that, hey, I was worth the pick in this draft.
100%. I mean, he, like I said, we talked about on Thursday, he made the comment after practice to Kurt Warner and them on NFL Network, I want to prove the Arizona Cardinals right for believing in me. You know what I mean? And he went out there, he did every bit of that. Again, 14 touches, not too far off from 100 total yards from scrimmage, like in a preseason game. And it was his ability to, and remember during the process, Keith, like you were a little hesitant to put it because we both have Jahmyr and Bijan in that high regard, right? Jahmyr, Bijan, Saquon, CMC, those do-it-all backs who are absolute stars, right? Like those guys. I could put John. He's not the pass catcher those guys are, but Jonathan Taylor as a runner is right up there with all of them. Like, you know what I mean? It's just a special running back in the NFL. And watching Jeremiyah Love, I was like, yeah, no, I feel like he's in that realm. And for him to go out there, the ability to make guys miss one-on-one, catching the ball out of the backfield, it's still, this is what I said on Thursday. I said, I want to just let him loose a little bit. Like, show us what you keep it vanilla. You don't got to show your whole bag, but just show us what you will do with him. He ran a Texas right at the backfield, caught the ball. His spatial awareness is so good. That linebacker was triggering. He spun right off of him and everything like that. His ability to, he could chain together jump cuts at the line of scrimmage and not lose ground, right? Like that was one of the things I knocked Genty on. I was like, Genty doesn't really have that lateral juice and explosiveness to chain together. Like if he jump cuts because of his body type, it's going to be hard to like chain together multiple cuts and then gear up and get upfield. It's going to take a little bit. Jeremiyah Love is not like that. Like he could chain together cuts and then get right north and south real quick. And then you got that play where he evaded. It was literally, I don't know if it was a linebacker or a D lineman, shot the gap. He got away from him in the backfield, got on the perimeter, gave him like a two-step, and then spun right off of that. I think it was a corner or safety out in space. And I'm like, that's where it's dangerous. Because think about it from a fact of if he's like let's say it's a passing play. And you dump the ball off to him, and it's just a corner over there. Everybody else is backside, and he's got 4.3 speed. He spins off of that one defender. This could be a house call really quickly. And he's the type of back where the Cardinals the past couple of years it's been James Conner, Trey Benson, DeMarcado. It's been a lot of different backs, but none of them were true home run threats. None of them gave you a semblance of explosiveness out the backfield. Jeremiyah Love's going, and I'm gonna be honest with you too, Keith. So coming into this thing, I was like, oh, they're probably gonna just, run. They got Brandon Tyler Algier. Like, yeah, run Algier, run James Conner if he's healthy. I don't know, Keith. I think Jeremiyah Love might be getting more. I'm gonna be honest with you. Arizona, I don't think you just put him on ice. We don't need to see him again. You know what I mean? We're good. I don't need to see him no more in the preseason. Just go ahead and let him do his thing. Just like Bijan. Like I think you still keep Algier to be that. Let's do the same thing he did with Bijan. Like sub in for Bijan, be the power back, things like that. Like handle some of the late game work, whatever. Cool. But I'm trying to get Jeremiyah Love the ball as much as possible in this offense with Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, and Marvin Harrison at wide receiver. So yeah. But the running, we didn't get to see Jadarian. I think he was a little nicked up from training camp, and they honestly don't really care. Like the Seahawks, like we'll see him week one if we need him. But Yeah, this running back. I mean, to see the running backs and what they were able to do between Mike Washington and Jeremiyah Love, it makes you feel like, me, I'm an RB guy. It makes me feel good. I love seeing it. I love seeing it, man.
Yeah, no, I DP the explosiveness, and I'll tell you this with Jeremiyah Love. I think what the Cardinals may have found to me is that outside stretch. Because his cutback, see that jump cut, and I think that's what I want to see, because that's what I was talking about. Sometimes at Notre Dame, and it might have been the injury playing a part. And remember, when we were talking about it Thursday, I was like, sometimes it felt like it was like explosiveness, and then sometimes it felt like it was like a decent type of speed to it. And in the preseason game, the young man looked healthy. It was explosive. I mean, he was eating up ground fast. There were a couple times where, and I hate to use exaggeratory phrases, right? But it was almost like a hold your breath type thing, because like it's just the one he about to rip, right, for a big time run. And it was, I remember watching Jahmyr Gibbs when he was at Georgia Tech, and it was the speed through the gap and the defender's lack of ability to adjust to the speed to get to the point or cut off the angle in which he was attacking made Gibbs dangerous. I see some of that in Love, right? And I, like you said, we get it as preseason, but man, you keep handing this young man carries, and this is what I'm talking about. It's going to be the third and fourth quarter where he's going to have really big impacts, because as those guys get winded, as those guys get tired, and then this is the other part too, DP, we have to also factor in injuries. And what I'm saying is, I'm not talking about injuries for Jeremiyah Love. I'm talking about injuries for defenses, right? Some of those linebackers that are playing in preseason, they're probably going to play in the regular season if a linebacker goes down here, something happens there, things like that. So that it's just NFL talent level, and that's why I want to tip my cap to it. And I'm excited about him. I'm excited to see what he can do, and I think that he should be. We've had it with the Ezekiel Elliott's, we've had it with the Saquon Barkleys, we've had it with I think Bijan, I'm trying to remember his rookie year in some capacity, right? I think he had a lot more catches than it was rushing yards. But those guys that immediately make a dominant impact to where people are like, you know what, as a rookie, is this a top 5 running back? Right? Like in the NFL. And they could potentially set up for that with Arizona, with the Cardinals. And I think for the Cardinals, they should go for it, because how long has it been since they've had an offensive identity, DP? I mean, think even with Kyler Murray, it still wasn't an offensive identity. It was just go run around, make a couple plays.
It was him and D-Hop. Him and DeAndre Hopkins. And I'll say this, Keith, to your point, as you get ready to close, think about from a Cardinals fan, this is what I want you to be excited about. You have Marvin Harrison, who, again, it was that first practice in July, and people were like, oh my God, he's dropping passes. And ever since then, he's been doing this thing. He had a touchdown catch. Catching passes. Again, you listen to any of the beat reporters. I've talked to different guys out there. They're like, listen, he's getting open constantly. Ever since that one practice, that was just, shout out to Underdog for creating that narrative. But because they tweeted that video out, people just went crazy, and it was just like, yeah, we got to put out another tweet, because people losing their minds, and they did, and everything. But yeah, I think if you're a Cardinals fan, Marv, Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, you got Kendrick Bourne is like the wide receiver kind of 3 in that situation. Now you got Jeremiyah Love, Tyler Algier in that backfield. Unfortunately, they lost Chase Basantis to a torn MCL. I think he was their second round pick. The guard out of Texas A&M, he was supposed to be, I think, one of their starters and everything. So we won't see him in the regular season until next year. But if this season goes away, I think the fans want it to go, where you see a lot of good things, but you don't win games. That sets you up to get your franchise quarterback. No disrespect to Carson Beck, but in this next class, we talked about Dante Moore. We talked about Lenore Sellers. We talked about Arch Manning, Darian Mensah, Trinidad Chambliss. You can get your franchise guy that walk in. What do we always say, Keith? I feel like we're the only ones that really say it. Build your team to be ready for the quarterback. Don't get the quarterback and try to build the team for them. Build your team, then get the QB. The Cardinals, they might be ahead of schedule if this season goes the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, DP, and they're going to have to be ahead of schedule, because on tomorrow's episode, we're going to be discussing another NFC West team that might have another franchise quarterback just sitting there waiting to rock and roll. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast all by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at the talent code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Coming up on tomorrow's show, Keith already talked about Ty Simpson. Got a 13th overall pick. People didn't like it. I wonder if they love it now, Keith, after week 1 of preseason. We'll talk about him. Deshaun Stribling from San Fran, staying in the NFC West. We got a lot more rookies to get into on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.